The morning of graduation arrived quietly, almost too quietly, like the world was holding its breath. The sun rose slowly, soft light slipping through the window and landing on the neatly pressed gown laid across the chair. This day had been circled on the calendar for years. It was supposed to be a clean ending, a proud moment, a fresh start. For her, it carried more weight than anyone else could see. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the cap again and again, not because it was crooked, but because her hands were shaking. Graduation was not just about finishing school. It was about surviving it. Every hallway walked, every classroom entered, every laugh heard behind her back had built up to this moment. She had learned how to keep her head down, how to stay quiet, how to smile even when it hurt. Today, she told herself, none of that mattered anymore. Her phone buzzed on the bed. A short message from her father read that he couldn't make it to the ceremony. Work had pulled him away unexpectedly. He apologized, said he was proud, said they would celebrate later. She stared at the screen longer than she should have. She understood, or at least she tried to. He had always worked odd hours, always had reasons that didn't fit neatly into simple explanations. Still, a small ache settled in her chest. She typed back that it was okay and added a smile emoji she didn't fully feel. On the drive to the graduation venue, she watched buildings pass by, feeling both excited and uneasy. Her mother chatted softly about photos and family plans, but her mind drifted. She wondered if today would really be peaceful. The Bullies had been quieter lately, but silence didn't always mean change. Sometimes it meant waiting. The venue was already crowded when they arrived. Families filled the seats, laughter echoed, and cameras flashed everywhere. The air smelled like flowers and warm concrete. Graduates in matching gowns moved in clusters, hugging, posing, celebrating loudly. She stepped out of the car and took a deep breath. This was her space too. She reminded herself of that. As she walked inside, she felt eyes on her. Some were friendly, some curious, and some cold. A familiar group stood near the entrance, leaning against a railing like they owned the place. They noticed her immediately. One of them nudged another and smirked. She pretended not to see it, keeping her eyes forward. She had learned that reacting only gave them what they wanted. She found her seat among the other graduates. The chair felt stiff, but she sat tall anyway. Around her, people talked about future plans, colleges, trips, freedom. She listened but didn't join in much. Her story had always been different. She had fought just to be here, passing grades, showing up every day, pushing through comments that chipped away at confidence. This piece of paper she was about to receive meant more than success. It meant endurance. The ceremony began with speeches that sounded hopeful and polished. Words like opportunity, growth, and unity filled the room. She tried to let them sink in. For a moment, she almost believed them completely. She imagined walking across the stage, hearing her name, feeling proud without fear following close behind. During a pause in the program, she stood to stretch her legs. The crowd shifted, people moving in and out of rows. As she stepped into the aisle, one of the bullies brushed past her shoulder a little too hard. No apology came. Instead, there was a low laugh. Her stomach tightened. She kept walking, telling herself it was almost over. Just a little longer. She went toward a quieter hallway near the side of the building, hoping for a moment alone to calm down. The noise faded slightly, replaced by echoes of footsteps and distant voices. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes for a second. Her heart was racing faster than it should have been. That's when she heard footsteps again. Not one person, but several. She opened her eyes and saw the same group approaching, blocking the hallway without saying a word at first. The smiles on their faces didn't reach their eyes. She felt that old familiar fear rise up, the kind that made your body react before your mind could catch up. She tried to move past them, but one stepped in front of her. A comment was made under the breath, sharp and cruel. Another laughed. She told them to leave her alone, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. They ignored her words, feeding off the tension. This was supposed to be her day. She thought of the gown she wore, the stage waiting, the family sitting proudly in the audience. None of that mattered in this narrow hallway. She felt small again, like she had so many times before. She reached into her pocket and wrapped her fingers around her phone. She didn't want to use it. She didn't want to feel weak. But fear has a way of pushing pride aside. As the situation felt more serious, she stepped back, her breathing quickening. In that moment, all the strength she had built over the years focused into one thought. She needed help. Someone she trusted. Someone who would believe her without question. Her thumb hovered over the screen before she pressed the call button. The phone rang once, then twice. Her voice came out softer than she expected when it was answered. She tried to keep it together, but emotion slipped through. "Dad," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the people in front of her. "Please, save me." The line stayed open as she listened to his breathing on the other end. She didn't know where he was or how far away. She didn't know what he could do. All she knew was that she had reached out, and for the first time that day she wasn't completely alone. The footsteps behind her shifted again. The hallway felt tighter, the air heavier. Somewhere nearby, applause broke out as another graduate crossed the stage, unaware of what was happening just out of sight. The contrast felt unreal. She held the phone close, her heart pounding, waiting for what would happen next, hoping that this day would not end the way it was beginning. The hallway felt smaller with every second that passed. The walls seemed to close in as the group stood in front of her, blocking the only clear way out. Their voices were low but sharp, filled with the kind of confidence that comes from thinking no one will stop you. She could hear her own heartbeat louder than anything else. She tried to stay calm. She told herself not to cry, not to show fear. She had learned long ago that fear only made things worse. But today something felt different. This wasn't just teasing or rude comments. The way they stood, the way they smiled, made her uneasy in a deeper way. One of them stepped closer. The space between them was gone now. She could smell the strong scent of cologne mixed with sweat. She told them again to move, her voice firmer this time. Instead of listening, another laugh followed. Someone mocked the way she spoke. Someone else made a comment meant to embarrass her. She looked down the hallway, hoping someone might appear. A teacher, a staff member, anyone. But the hallway stayed empty. The ceremony sounds were distant, like they were happening in another world. Applause echoed faintly, reminding her how close yet how far help felt. Her back brushed against the wall, cold and hard. She felt trapped. Her phone was still pressed against her ear. She could hear her father's voice now, tense and focused, asking where she was. She tried to explain quietly, her words rushed and shaking. She didn't want them to hear, but she also didn't want to hang up. One of them noticed the phone. "Who you calling?" someone said. A hand reached out, trying to knock it away. She pulled back quickly, gripping it tighter. Panic surged through her chest. She had never felt so exposed, so helpless, even with people all around in the building. The first shove came suddenly. It wasn't hard enough to knock her down, but it was enough to make her stumble. Her shoulder hit the wall. Pain shot through her arm. Laughter followed, louder this time. That sound hurt more than the shove itself. She begged them to stop. Her voice cracked despite her effort to stay strong. She reminded them it was graduation day, that people would notice, that this wasn't worth it. Her words fell flat. To them, this was entertainment. Another shove came, stronger than the first. Her balance slipped, and she fell to her knees. The cold floor pressed against her gown. She could feel dust and dirt seeping through the fabric. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break completely. A foot kicked out, not hard enough to cause serious injury, but enough to scare her. Enough to cross a line. Her breath caught in her throat. This was no longer just bullying. This was something that could get worse if it didn't stop now. She cried out louder this time, not just to them but to anyone who might hear. The sound echoed down the hallway, but still no one came. Her heart raced as fear took over her body. She felt small, like all the progress she had made over the years was slipping away. Her phone was still connected. Her father's voice came through clearly now, calm but firm. He told her to stay on the line. He told her to keep talking. Hearing him steadied her just a little. She described the hallway, the location, anything that might help him understand where she was. One of the bullies mocked her again, repeating her words in a fake, crying tone. Another told her no one was coming. They believed it. That belief gave them confidence. She tried to stand, using the wall to support herself. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself upright. She wasn't going to stay on the floor. Even in fear, she held onto her dignity. Another push sent her stumbling again. Her cap fell off, rolling across the floor. Seeing it there hurt more than she expected. That cap symbolized everything she had worked for, everything she had endured. Now it lay on the ground like it didn't matter. Her father heard the noise through the phone. His voice changed. It grew sharper, more urgent. He told her help was on the way. He didn't explain how or who. He just told her to trust him. She clung to those words. Trust him. She had trusted him her whole life, even when she didn't understand his world or his work. Right now, trust was all she had. The group grew restless. Maybe they sensed something had shifted. Maybe they noticed her fear turning into quiet determination. They exchanged looks, unsure of how far to take this. One of them kicked near her again, missing her leg by inches. She flinched, but she didn't scream this time. She kept the phone close and stayed focused on her father's voice. Footsteps finally echoed at the far end of the hallway. The group froze for a moment. A staff member appeared briefly, glanced down the hall, then turned away, distracted by something else. The bullies relaxed again, laughing under their breath. She felt anger rise up through the fear. Anger at them. Anger at the silence. Anger at how easily people looked away. That anger gave her strength. She stood straighter, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her gown. She told them she was done, that they needed to leave her alone. Her voice was still shaking, but there was something new in it now. Resolve. They didn't answer. Instead, they stepped back slightly, as if deciding their next move. The hallway felt charged, heavy with uncertainty. Her phone buzzed against her ear as her father spoke again. His words were clear and confident. He told her to stay right where she was. He told her she was not alone anymore. She didn't know what he meant, but she believed him. She leaned against the wall, breathing deeply, waiting. Somewhere outside the building, something was already in motion, even if she couldn't see it yet. The graduation ceremony continued on the other side of the wall. Names being called, cheers rising and falling. Life went on as if nothing was wrong. But for her, everything had changed. She stood there, bruised, shaken, but still standing, holding onto the phone and the promise that help was coming. Whatever happened next would decide how this day would be remembered forever. The call reached him in the middle of a quiet moment that did not feel quiet at all. He had been standing near his bike, helmet resting on the seat, thinking about the long road ahead. When he heard her voice, small and shaking, the world snapped into sharp focus. Every sound around him faded. Every thought narrowed to one purpose. He listened without interrupting. Years of experience had taught him that panic only makes things worse. He asked short questions, clear ones. Where she was, what she could see, if she was hurt. He could hear noise on her end, voices that did not belong to her. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. He told her to keep the line open. He told her to breathe slowly. He reminded her that she was strong, even if she didn't feel it right now. When she said she was scared, he didn't argue with her feelings. He acknowledged them. He told her fear did not mean weakness. Fear meant she understood danger. As he listened, he stepped away from the building he was near and walked toward a more open space. His free hand reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another phone. This one was older, heavier, used only when things mattered. He didn't hesitate. He pressed a single contact. The call connected almost immediately. He didn't explain much. He didn't need to. His voice carried urgency, and the person on the other end recognized it. He shared the location, the situation, and one simple request. He wasn't asking for chaos. He was asking for presence. He ended the call and made another. Then another. Each call was short. Each answer came with the same understanding. There was no excitement, no shouting, no rush to anger, just quiet readiness. These were people who had learned discipline the hard way. He returned his full attention to his daughter. He asked her to tell him what she could hear. He wanted to keep her grounded. He wanted her focused on the moment instead of spiraling into fear. She described the hallway, the sounds of the ceremony through the walls, the way the air felt heavy. He pictured it all clearly. He imagined her standing there in her gown, shoulders tense, trying to be brave. The thought cut deep. He had promised himself long ago that she would never feel alone in this world. Today, that promise was being tested. He told her help was coming, but he did not say how. He didn't want to distract her. He didn't want her to worry about what it meant. He just needed her to trust him a little longer. Around him, engines began to start. One by one, then several at once. The sound was low and steady, not rushed. Riders appeared from different directions, pulling on gloves, adjusting jackets. They nodded to him as they arrived. No words were exchanged. None were needed. These were not strangers chasing trouble. They were men and women who understood loyalty and boundaries. Many of them had children of their own. When they heard what was happening, they did not see a headline or a confrontation. They saw a child in danger. He spoke to them briefly. He told them where to go and what not to do. No one argued. No one questioned him. The goal was simple. Show up, stand firm, and make sure the truth could no longer be ignored. As the group prepared to leave, he put his helmet on but kept the visor open. He stayed on the call with his daughter. He told her to keep her back against the wall if she needed to. He reminded her that the hallway was public space, even if it felt empty. She told him the voices around her had grown quieter. He noticed that change immediately. Silence can mean many things. Sometimes it means people are thinking. Sometimes it means they sense something shifting. He started his bike and eased onto the road, not speeding, not weaving. There was no need to rush recklessly. Time mattered, but control mattered more. Behind him, bikes fell into formation, engines humming in a steady rhythm. As they rode, he thought about the years that had led to this moment. He remembered teaching his daughter to ride a bike, running behind her until she found her balance. He remembered the first time she came home upset from school, pretending everything was fine. He remembered promising her that she would always have someone in her corner. The ride did not take long, but every minute felt heavy. He stayed focused on her voice. When she went quiet for a few seconds, his heart tightened. He asked her to respond. When she did, relief washed through him, even as anger simmered beneath the surface. He told her she was doing exactly what she needed to do. Standing, breathing, staying connected. He reminded her that what was happening was not her fault, no matter what anyone else might try to suggest. As they neared the venue, he could see the building ahead. Cars lined the streets. Families moved in and out, smiling, unaware. He slowed the group before turning in. He did not want to cause panic. He wanted clarity. He guided the riders to park along the side, visible but controlled. Engines shut off one by one. Helmets came off. Jackets with patches caught the light, unmistakable but calm. Inside the building, the atmosphere shifted before anyone said a word. People noticed. Conversations paused. Phones lowered. The presence alone changed the energy. He stayed on the call as he walked toward the entrance. He told his daughter he was close now. He told her to stay where she was and keep breathing. Security staff noticed the group and approached carefully. He spoke to them respectfully, explaining the situation without raising his voice. The seriousness in his tone made them listen. Down the hallway, his daughter felt it too. The voices around her faded. The bullies exchanged looks, uncertainty replacing confidence. Something was happening and they could feel it. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear as she heard her father say he was inside the building. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were different. They were mixed with relief. He walked with purpose now, guided by her description, counting doorways, turning corners. Every step brought him closer. The ceremony continued somewhere else, applause rising and falling like waves. But in this hallway, a moment of truth was approaching. He reached the entrance to the corridor and stopped briefly, taking in the scene. His daughter against the wall, her cap on the floor, the group standing nearby, suddenly unsure. He took a deep breath before stepping forward. This was not about anger. This was about protection. About making sure she walked out of that building with her head held high. On the other end of the line, she heard his footsteps and knew, without seeing him yet, that everything was about to change. The hallway went quiet in a way that felt heavy, like the air itself had stopped moving. She saw her father before she fully believed it was real. He stood a few steps away, calm but solid, like nothing in the world could push him back. Behind him, others stood spaced out, not blocking the hall, not threatening anyone, just present. That presence alone changed everything. Her knees felt weak, but she stayed standing. She held the phone loosely now, no longer needing it pressed to her ear. Her father met her eyes first. He didn't rush her. He didn't shout. He simply nodded, a small gesture that said, "I'm here." The group that had surrounded her shifted uncomfortably. The confidence they had earlier drained from their faces. They hadn't expected this. They hadn't expected witnesses who could not be ignored. One of them took a small step back, then another. Her father spoke gently to her, asking if she was hurt. She shook her head, though her body still ached. He asked if she could walk. She nodded again. He stepped closer, placing himself between her and the others without touching anyone. The message was clear. People began to gather at the ends of the hallway. A few staff members appeared, drawn by the tension. Security moved in more quickly now, alert and focused. The ceremony sounds continued in the distance, but here, everything had paused. Her father addressed the staff calmly. He explained what had happened, pointing to the fallen cap on the floor, the shaken look on his daughter's face. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't need to. The truth was heavy enough on its own. She bent down slowly and picked up her cap. Her hands trembled as she brushed off the dust. That simple act felt powerful. She was reclaiming something that had been taken from her, even if only for a moment. One of the staff members asked the group to step aside. This time they listened. Their earlier laughter was gone. They avoided eye contact, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on them now. Her father placed a steady hand on her shoulder, not gripping, just grounding. She leaned into it slightly, drawing strength from his presence. For the first time since the morning, she felt safe enough to breathe deeply. Security began asking questions. Simple ones. What happened? Where? Who was involved? She answered quietly but clearly. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. Each word felt like a step forward. The hallway filled with murmurs. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable, as if realizing something they had ignored for too long. Phones came out not to record drama, but to call supervisors, administrators, parents. Her father stayed close but let her speak for herself. He knew this moment mattered. She wasn't just being protected. She was being heard. The group was escorted away from the hallway. No shouting followed. No chaos. Just firm direction and compliance. The contrast to what had happened earlier was striking. As they were led away, one of them glanced back at her. There was no smirk this time, just fear and regret mixed together. She didn't look away. She stood tall even though her legs still felt weak. Once the hallway cleared, a quiet settled again, but this time it felt different. Safer. Supportive. A staff member offered her water. Another asked if she needed medical help. She shook her head, sipping slowly, letting the coolness steady her. Her father spoke softly to her, telling her how proud he was, not just for graduating but for standing up, for calling him, for surviving something that should never have happened. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks now without shame. These tears weren't from fear anymore. They were release. An announcement echoed faintly over the speakers, calling graduates back to their seats. The ceremony was moving forward, but nothing felt the same anymore. A staff member asked if she wanted to continue or step outside. She looked at her father. He didn't answer for her. He waited. She took a moment, then said she wanted to finish what she started. She had earned that walk across the stage. Fear would not take that from her. Her father smiled slightly. He told her he would be right there, watching. As they walked back toward the main hall together, people made space for them. Some offered quiet words of support. Others simply nodded, understanding without needing explanation. She returned to her seat among the graduates. Her heart still raced, but it was steady enough now. When her name was called later, she stood up, every step feeling heavier than expected, but also stronger. The applause that followed sounded louder than before. Not because it was bigger, but because she heard it differently now. She walked across the stage with her head high, eyes forward. Somewhere in the crowd, her father stood, arms crossed, pride written clearly on his face. Around him, the others stood respectfully, not drawing attention, simply present. When she accepted her diploma, she felt something shift inside her. This moment was hers, fully. As she stepped off the stage, the weight she had carried for years began to lift, little by little. She knew there would still be healing ahead, still questions, still anger at times. But she also knew something important now. Silence protects the wrong people. Speaking up changes things. The ceremony continued, but the lesson of the day had already been written, not in speeches or programs, but in courage and presence. She returned to her seat, breathing deeply, holding her diploma tightly, knowing that whatever came next, she would never face it alone again. After the ceremony ended, the noise slowly faded into small pockets of conversation and laughter. Families gathered near the exits, taking photos, hugging, talking about plans. She stood off to the side for a moment, holding her diploma against her chest, letting everything sink in. The day had not gone the way she imagined, but it had not broken her. In a strange way, it had revealed her strength. Her father walked up beside her, careful not to overwhelm her. He asked how she was feeling, not rushing the answer. She took a breath and told him the truth. She said she was tired, but lighter, shaken but proud. Saying the words out loud helped her believe them. They stepped outside together. The air felt cooler, fresher. Sunlight reflected off parked cars and moving shadows. The people who had come with her father stood a respectful distance away, talking quietly among themselves. There was no celebration from them, no sense of victory. They were simply there until they were no longer needed. She thanked them with a small nod. Some nodded back. One offered a gentle smile. That was enough. She understood now that support doesn't always come with noise or drama. Sometimes it comes with calm presence and steady ground. A school administrator approached them and spoke carefully, choosing words that acknowledged what had happened without trying to smooth it over. There would be reports, meetings, consequences. Promises were made about changes, about safety, about listening more closely in the future. She listened, not expecting perfection, but appreciating that the truth was finally being faced. Her father didn't interrupt. He didn't threaten. He simply stood there, solid and watchful. When the administrator finished, he thanked them for taking it seriously. His tone made it clear that seriousness was not optional anymore. As they walked toward the car, she noticed the graduation cap in her hands. The small scuff on the edge reminded her of the hallway floor. Instead of feeling upset, she felt something else. The mark told a story. It reminded her that she had been pushed and had still stood back up. They drove away from the venue quietly. She watched the building grow smaller in the distance. That place had held years of memories, both painful and proud. Now it was behind her. At a quiet spot nearby, they stopped and sat on a low wall overlooking the road. Cars passed by steadily, people moving on with their lives. She rested her head briefly against her father's shoulder. He stayed still, letting her choose the moment. He told her something simple. He said that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about speaking up when fear tries to silence you. He told her she had done that today. She thought about the younger version of herself, the one who stayed quiet to survive. She didn't blame that girl anymore. She thanked her for getting this far. And she promised herself that the future version would not be silent. Later that evening, messages began to come in. Some classmates apologized. Others admitted they had seen things before and hadn't known what to do. A few shared their own stories quietly. She read them slowly, choosing which ones to respond to and which ones to leave unanswered. She understood that healing didn't mean carrying everyone else's guilt. Her mother hugged her tightly at home, tears mixing with pride. Dinner was simple but warm. Laughter returned in small pieces. The house felt safe. As the night grew quiet, she sat alone for a moment with her diploma resting on the table. She traced her name with her finger. Felt real now. Not just a piece of paper, but proof. She thought about the future. College, work, new places where no one knew her past. The thought used to scare her. Now it felt open, like a road waiting to be traveled. Before going to bed, she stepped outside and looked up at the night sky. The stars were faint but steady. She took a deep breath and let the day finally end. What happened to her would not disappear overnight. Some days would still be heavy. Some memories would still sting. But she had learned something important. She was not powerless. Her voice mattered. The next morning, she woke up without the weight she had carried for so long. Graduation was over, but something else had begun. She packed away her gown, careful with it, then placed the cap on a shelf where she could see it. Not as a reminder of fear, but as a symbol of strength. When she stepped forward into her next chapter, she did so knowing that standing up for herself had changed more than just one day. It had changed how she saw herself, and that, she realized, was the greatest graduation of all.